Hey everybody, it's me Amanda here with Once in a Wild, and I have a special friend with us today, a special guest, and you're going to meet her in just a little bit, and she'll tell you all about who she is and what she does here in just a little bit. If you've never been here before, this is our weekly live stream that we broadcast each and every Wednesday at 6:30 p.m. Central Standard Time. We are in San Antonio, Texas, and we are Once in a Wild, which is a mobile zoo and animal outreach company, and that means we bring animals to classrooms, to all sorts of different events and things like birthday parties, etc. And we can also bring the zoo to you virtually through a Zoom room animal encounter if you would like. But without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. Okay, hey everybody, it's me Amanda with Once in a Wild, and who are you?
My name is Inga Cotton, and I'm the founder and executive director of San Antonio Charter Moms.
Tell us more about that and what you do a little bit.
So we are a nonprofit organization, and we are focused on San Antonio, but our goal is to provide families with information about education. So we want to be their trusted source for information about how to choose the right school for their kids, how to find enrichment activities like involving animals, fun stuff like that, right? and how to be advocates for making education better in our community.
Got you. And we're going to learn a little bit more about what Inga does as well, and about SA Charter Moms and how you guys can get involved. But before we forget, I do want to mention all the things that I usually talk about at the beginning of our live stream, which is how you can help us out as well. This broadcast that we bring to you guys is free of charge each and every Wednesday at 6:30 p.m. But there are ways that you can help us out. We are a mobile zoo with over 75 animal ambassadors and growing. So we do rely on your purchases of our animal encounters and your donations to us to keep going and to keep our animals taken care of and fed, and all their veterinary bills taken care of, and all the bills paid, etc. So there are a few ways that you can help us out specifically, and we'll talk about how people can help you guys out as well here in a little bit. But a couple of ways are going to be Venmo, Cash App, and PayPal. You can tip whatever amount you would like if you enjoy the program today, or if you just want to give us a little gift. That is much appreciated, and every little bit helps, of course, the animals, and it goes straight to animal care as well. And you can also go to onceinawild.com and go to the link that says donate, and there's a couple other ways you can also donate to, like our Amazon wish list, which has really fun items that we've chosen for the animals that you can ship straight to our door, and that's a lot of fun as well. So we have some fun presents you can buy for the animals, as well as booking your own animal encounter, of course, perfect for classrooms, perfect for birthday parties, back to school parties. We've had a couple of those, and public events, maybe corporate events, or even offices, and even animal therapy and virtual Zoom rooms. So the sky's the limit on what you can experience with our animals. We do have all sorts of animals like birds, mammals, reptiles, creepy crawlies, and even amphibians. So something for everybody, and you get to customize your encounter. So please let me know if we can help you. Some people are already chiming in. Ricardo, of course, is here. He's saying hi. As you can see, I can highlight your comments down below and your questions down below. We will be meeting some animals here in a little bit, but if you have questions for me about the animals or what we do, or if you have questions for Inga, feel free to ask your questions down below. And we're also broadcasting on your Facebook as well, because you live stream too, don't you, on Wednesdays?
That's right. That's right. So yeah, we call them Charter Moms Chats. And usually what we're doing is we're highlighting whatever blog post we're featuring today. So if it's right. So actually, we published a guest post about Once in a Wild today, talking about how educational it is to have animals in the classroom. So there's lots of great information on our blog. It's sachartermoms.com. Okay. And the thing that I would most like viewers to do is come visit us and follow us. So we're at SA Charter Moms on Twitter, on Instagram. We have a Facebook page that's SA Charter Moms, and then we also have our discussion group on Facebook. So it's the San Antonio Charter Moms discussion group on Facebook. It is very lively. We're up to almost 8,000 members. Wow. And I should mention dads are welcome, grandmas are welcome, teenagers are welcome, teachers are welcome, superintendents are welcome. And it's a great place to crowdsource information. People are asking all kinds of questions like, hey, do I need to teach my kid how to tie their shoes before kindergarten? And it's very non-judgmental. It's a very welcoming place. So it's a safe space to ask whatever, parenting type educational questions you've got.
That's excellent and good to know. I'm glad you told our audience that. I'm sure your audience needs to know and have a reminder as well. So here we go. There's your, I assume that's from your end at sachartermoms.com, of course, right? Very, very good. Ricardo saying hello. I'm just checking in with whoever's commenting down below so I don't forget. I like to do that periodically throughout the live stream. Aw, Laura says, hello, so excited to see some animals. Hey, Laura, nice to meet you. Thank you for being here. And of course, if you guys have questions whatsoever about anything, or you just want to give us some encouragement or say something nice, you can go ahead and leave us a comment or a question down below. Always keep it family friendly, you guys. This is a family show. Oh, Christian's on. That is my brother-in-law. Hi, Amanda, he says, little heart face emoji. So nice. Love the matching shirts. Thanks.
I heard that
pure coincidence
were the thing. Yes.
Typically our uniform here once in a while, and today for SA Charter Month as well. Wonderful. So Ricardo is reminding me to ask you, how can we support SA Charter Moms?
Yes. Okay. So we do have a link to donate, and it's at sachartermoms.com. So just look for the donate button. But the thing I think is most important to us is eyeballs, just your attention, because it takes a whole team to make education better. So it's families individually making choices about the school that's the right fit for their kids. But it's also like looking out for the community as a whole. So making sure that nobody in our community is left behind. We want every kid to have an opportunity for a great education.
So what made you want to start SA Charter Moms in the first place?
So partly it was as a mom, and partly it was like sort of my context in the community and what I was seeing happening. So I have two kids. They're off in the other room, but so my son Nicholas is 14 and my daughter Annika is 11, and my son is on the autism spectrum. And because so having a kid with special needs, like all the special needs parents know, it's just a little bit harder to there's a new set of challenges. So finding a school that was the right fit for him was really hard, and it made me think, I bet there are other families that are also having a hard time with this, whether it's their child with special needs or they want something unique for their kids. They want a school that fits their values. They want high academic achievements. There's lots of different, like, people ask me, like, what is the best school in San Antonio? I'm like, I have no idea. That is a very like personalized question. So, but we can present information, because one thing that's changed is, like when I went to high school here in San Antonio, there were no charter schools. There was not even a law to allow charter schools in Texas. So
tell me what a charter school is, because I don't know what that is.
Right.
I'm out of the loop. Way out.
So how it was when I was growing up was that there were traditional public school districts, and they each covered a certain geographic area, and they would charge property taxes to the people who own homes and businesses. Then depending on what street you lived on, they would say you're going to go to that elementary school, that middle school, that high school. There were a few magnet schools, like, so you could go across town and study science.
I'm familiar with that.
Yeah. And then there were private schools, right? Like the Archdiocese of San Antonio.
That's where I went. I went to private school.
1851 or so. I don't know.
Not that long ago. I didn't go to private school.
Yeah. So the idea with charter schools is to, like, let's offer something different. Like, let's give these passionate teachers a chance to found a school so that they can express their vision and offer something unique. And that's like what's super exciting about my job is I get to meet school founders. I get to tour schools. I get to find out, like, oh, this school has a makerspace and they have a 3D printer and they have this and that. Like, wow, that's really cool. Or I go to this other school and it's like, I see 5-year-olds with 6-inch knives. Okay. Cool. All right. I'm good with this. Right. I mean, or like, oh, look at these seniors and they're like securing this network against cyber attacks. Like, oh, that's really interesting. So it's like, there's amazing stuff happening like all across town. And I bet. And like charter schools are driving that innovation because they're letting the teachers do creative things, and they're bringing in students and families that are really jazzed about what that school offers. So, but then there's certain things like basic facts that I had to learn, which is like they're free. They don't charge tuition. Oh, okay. They're funded by the state. They're not funded by necessarily a local district. It's funded and they're authorized by the state. So there's a process where they have to kind of quality control, prove that they're meeting that standard. They do have to take standardized tests like other public schools. So whereas private schools don't take standardized tests. And then it's trickier to get in because they only have a certain number of seats. And so if they get more applications than they have seats, then they have to do a lottery. That was my next question. Is it limited? How do is it usually less students than a charter school than it would be like a standard public school? They're usually pretty small campuses. Okay, that's kind of nice. It is kind of nice because like everybody knows everybody, right? Like I've met principals who knew the name of every kid in the school. Yeah, that's how I grew up in private school because I went to Castle Hills, K through 12. So we were like a family there. So I do understand that part of it, but I'm so out of the loop because that's what I'm used to. And from being out of school for so long, I don't
don't know. Which I'm sure is how some of these moms feel.
Right.
You know, they're probably out of the loop, and then they have children. They're like, I don't know what to do. What's the right decision for my child? So
right, like the world changed, and
yes,
and like when people ask me like, well, when should I start thinking about this? And like it's like, as far as the application process, it's about a 12-month process from like researching the schools and like come up with your short list, and then find out what the deadlines are, apply to those. So like October through February is kind of enrollment season, which is what we want you guys to help with, right? Which is so pre-pandemic we would have these what we call school discovery days or school discovery nights, and we would find like a fun place like Traders Village or Pika Pika Plaza or like a community room at a library.
Got you.
And we'd invite like a dozen schools that have campuses in that part of town, and they would set up tables. And what's great about that is like, if you're a parent and you're researching this for your kids, you can go to the school discovery day and talk to like, 5-10 different schools and like talk to the people. They might have some students, they might have like a robotics demonstration or like pencils and school supplies.
It's kind of like when you're applying for colleges and you go to one of those, I forget what they call them. It's a big convention event, college fair, something like that. Exactly. Thank you.
You get the vibe.
And you can see like, do I want to go to a trade school? Do I want to go to Harvard? Do I want to go to Baylor? Like, where do I want to go? Or just like maybe community college, which is great for some people too. So that's great to know. So when does that normally occur, when those events? When does that normally happen?
We did the year before the pandemic started. We did a handful of them. We do maybe like 1 or 2 a month. And and so it depends on the schools. It's tricky because like some schools do enrollment in like November, December, and some it's like September through February. Like why
can't they all be the same?
That would make it easier.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't even know when kids are off for summer anymore. I'm like, what is summer? I don't know what planet I'm on anymore half the time, especially now.
Actually, a lot of us are like, wait, what? Like, wait, when was spring break 2020? Because like, when did that end? I don't know.
So how have you guys adapted since the big pandemic happened, etc.? Or even like when it was first happening and it was kind of like, what are we doing? Is this serious? Do we know?
Right.
What are we,
Yeah.
So what did you guys do?
I remember like, I guess like when Tom Hanks got sick and when the
Mm-hmm.
NBA started canceling games, like that's when I was like, oh, this is real. And then like, kids came home from spring break assuming that they would go back after spring break, and then they never really did.
And it was just like buffering, pending.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was weird. I mean, we had like lots of discussion, and it was a year when there was a lot of awareness about social justice too. So there was a lot of discussion about that. How do we have these conversations with our kids, right? How do we talk about safety? How do we talk about public health, right? So like there was a lot of traffic in our group, and we really worked hard to like help people feel safe and welcome.
That's good.
Yeah.
So you guys have really served more purposes than you expected. I would imagine, just like us too. And I mean, we opened up right before the pandemic, like at all. Like our company was brand new, and so we thought we were over. We thought, okay, we tried, that's it. And then we got the idea through a lot of us kind of thinking with all of our heads together in our family. We thought, what if we go online? And that's what you guys kind of did too, right? So when did you start live streaming then?
So
to kind of get people's attention and blogging. Did you always do the blogs?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's a world I'm not in at all. I can write. I'm a good writer, but blogging is very new to me, and that's something we've just picked up since once in a while personally. So tell me about that.
The blog post started in 2012, although don't go look at the old ones.
Go look at them.
No. It was a process of figuring out like looking at like Google Analytics, like what do people want to read, right? And so like some of the most popular posts are the ones where, so for example, Idea Public Schools, they have like over a dozen campuses in town. You see the billboards, you hear them on the radio. Like,
Idea. They have the little light bulb. Idea. Yeah.
So lots of people, like they'll see it, they'll Google it, they find our site, and then we've got in-depth, like this is where the campuses are, this is what school model is like, this is how you apply, and then having the live stream. So like we're planning to interview like their executive director for the San Antonio region. She's going to be, hopefully, fingers crossed, she'll be our guest in September when we feature the update on their guide. And so, it's like some people want to read the post and click on links, and some people want to listen and get the vibe and like, or, comment and ask questions and have that interactive experience. And so and then what we do is we take the interview and we embed it in the blog post. So if you find the video, you can click through and see the blog post. If you find the blog post, you can sit back and watch the video or listen to it as a podcast and just take in the information. However,
it's like a bunch of options for people's different either learning styles or whatever you prefer to actually get involved. That makes sense. That's why we do what we do as well. Some people learn by touching and feeling things. Some people learn by listening. Some people learn visually. I mean, it just kind of all depends. So we're very similar. We're more similar than people might imagine. And we're of course based in education too, and that's how we want to get involved with you guys. And of course do the events, but also network with the schools, because that's really what we would like to do most of the time, is go into classrooms and teach kids and adults, the teachers, whoever, about these wonderful animals that we are so passionate about. And that's why we opened up once in a while in the first place, was to teach animals, but to teach people about animals that they may not be super excited about at first, like snakes and spiders and all sorts of things. So let's check in and see what people are. Oh, here we go. It's a bunch of cute animal emojis: a bird, a frog, a worm, a rabbit. I don't know, a worm. I mean, that's not really an animal we have. Another bird, another rabbit, and a parrot. Oh, Ricky says he can't hear you very well.
Oh, okay.
So I know I'm a little bit loud. You're just very soft-spoken. That's okay. What upcoming events do you have going on?
Right. So in the very short run, we're doing virtual events. We're talking about so like over the summer, families got star report cards if your kids were in third grade and up.
Okay.
And a star report card, like, taking the test is stressful, but you actually get useful information. So if you look at the star report card, you can find out, like, okay, what kinds of questions did my kids miss in math? And then you can take that information and go to your kid's next teacher. Like, don't wait for a parent-teacher conference. Like, do it sooner.
Oh, okay.
Talk to them and say, hey, how does my kid get extra help? Like, do you have like some personalized learning that they can do? Is there math tutoring? Is it, because like, the way it looks like from the data, the kids who were on campus were typically learning more than the kids who were doing remote learning, because it was just, it's hard to do.
And that's right now it's hard to make that decision on, what is the best decision for us? Should we stay home and be safer, or should we, give them the best setup to learn better? So I imagine that's part of, what the moms and dads and everybody wanting to know talks about on your Facebook groups, but also maybe you guys have advice or schools that are more, more options or whatever.
Right, sure you guys do that a lot. Well, like different schools have different like mask policies. Like, do they encourage? Yes,
true.
Like some schools have had clinics to make sure all the teachers are vaccinated. Some encourage teachers to wear masks. So virtual learning is actually not going to be an option this fall. So unless families, so they could choose
for everyone or for
there's no funding for virtual school for the coming school year. Yeah.
Wow.
Unless it's there was a small number of full-time online schools that existed before the pandemic, but they don't offer anything below third grade, which is weird, right?
That is weird.
Yeah. There's a whole like history of like politics, like why that happened, but it's really weird. So
there's so much to learn.
it's fascinating, but so it is a tough choice for families, because like my daughter is not old enough to get vaccinated,
right?
But what I learned last year was that, like, once the rest of us got vaccinated, we allowed her to go back on campus, and she was so much happier. She got to see her friends. She was more engaged. So we really want her to be on campus. She is good about mask wearing. She's gonna keep it on during class. 5-year-olds, I don't know. They're not good about it. I'll tell you that.
But it is what it is. But that's so interesting. I didn't even think about going into like next year and this year coming up. Like, what are even the options that people have?
Man, I think that there's been a shift towards homeschooling that I don't think will ever. It's never going to go back to what it was. I think there are families who like did it out of necessity, and then were like, we can do this.
Wait a minute. Now I see what people like about it.
Yeah,
which I understand.
So resourceful. And I did it for 1 year. I knew it was temporary. Because there was a charter school that I really had my heart set on, and and then they pushed back their opening date by a year, and then I was like, oh,
dang it.
Okay. and then like during that year, I told all my friends about it, and then my son got waitlisted. I was like, oh, I did too good a job telling people about it. And then, but fortunately, by June, he got an offer, and he got to start. I was like, okay, good. I would have felt really bad if if you hadn't got in because of my big mouth. But
Oh, Annika says, I wish I could be vaccinated. Yes,
Aww.
soonish. Hang in there. Oh, Christian thought it was a snake and not a worm, I guess. Okay, so events, you mentioned that. Well, do you guys have any like regular scheduled event? I know this year and last year have been weird, but normally do you guys have regular events that are kind of around the same time of year consistently?
I mean, so we're definitely, so I would say look for in October to have things related to enrollment season. And so, but in the meantime, it's going to be virtual events, either talking about the STAR or talking about how to do a school search, because there's, it's going to be families like who have never thought about this before. Right. Yeah. And we have blog posts that explain like, what the timeline is, how waiting lists work, how lotteries work, all that kind of stuff.
How do lotteries work? I don't know what that means.
Yeah. So basically like if, so let's say a school has 100 seats for kindergartners, but 200 families apply for their kindergarten. Then, they don't do first come first served. What they do is they say on a certain date they're going to look at all the applications that came in up to that point, and then they randomize it. So it used to be they'd use a bingo machine. Yeah. Now it's computerized, but yeah, it used to be the bingo machine, and they'd take a number out and read it. Now it's they do it on the computer, and then they send out an email and say, okay, log into the portal, and then you find out do you get an offer or do you get waitlisted? So what we advise families to don't do what I did, which is I applied to one school and my son got waitlisted. And I was like, now what? But I would have just kept homeschooling if that hadn't worked out. But apply to 3 schools, maybe 5 schools, have your first choice, but have some backups. And then along the way, just get a bite. While you're researching, you might fall in love with one of the other schools. So
absolutely. Yeah. It's just like college. So that makes sense to me. I remember, trying to figure out what I was going to do with my life, just like everybody else that does. Even if you don't go to college, what am I going to do with my life? It sounds very familiar. Do I move? Do I whatever? But I guess if you're in San Antonio or wherever city, you don't move. So you have to, kind of choose from what you're given, as just your options. Yeah. So that's
I guess one key thing about charter schools is that okay, let's say you move to a different house, you don't have to leave your charter school. You can stay.
Oh, that's so nice. And that's what I was used to too, going to private school. So that reminds me of that as well. Yeah. Yeah. And my mom taught at the same school. So I went there, from beginning to end until I went to college. So very, very interesting. Is it typically elementary and then middle and then high school, just like other public schools? Yeah. As far as the grade levels?
It depends. So there are some charter schools go all the way from pre-K to 12th grade.
Oh, do they? Okay, there you
some
go.
are kinder through 5th or kinder through 8th, and some are 5th through 12th. Okay. So that's why. So we have a system on our site where it filters. So if you have a 5th grader, you can filter just for that, because it can be confusing because there's actually one high school that goes down to 5th grade. So you would skip over.
I'm sure there's weird exceptions for sure. Okay, that makes sense. So you can kind of, I'm sure it's totally different than it used to be when I was in school. I was going to ask you, what are some of the examples here in town or surrounding cities of the charter schools that you have worked with or that you know of or recommend? Right.
Okay. So, God, and there's so many. So, okay.
It's okay.
Yeah. But, I guess I kind of break it down by what types of schools. Okay. So sure. The data show, there's lots of jobs, good paying jobs in STEM fields. So kids are interested in computer science or math or engineering. And so there's schools that specialize in that. So, so there's one called School of Science and Technology. They have a handful of campuses. They're opening one in Schertz. There's a school called Basis. Okay. That sort of has a reputation as a STEM school because they teach a lot of advanced math and science, but they actually have a liberal arts curriculum. They have orchestra, they have drama, and stuff like that. Very important. Yeah, and the STEM schools, and then it's interesting. So in some of the traditional public school districts have started kind of creating their own charter schools within their district. So they're called in-district charter schools. And so SAISD, San Antonio
My mind is blown.
has a whole bunch of these. And they have STEM schools. So Cass Tech that's where they teach cybersecurity and stuff. Kids are locking down networks in there.
That's very needed. Right now, especially. Yeah. So what is your background anyway? Since this is really the first time that we've actually met in person. So I'm curious.
Okay. So I was born in California. We moved around a lot growing up. I thought I would either be a lawyer or a fashion designer. Which is kind of but the reality is now I do a little of both, I guess. So because I went to law school, and then I realized I did not enjoy working at a law firm, but I did enjoy like working in the judicial system, like ghostwriting. I would ghostwrite opinions for judges.
Okay.
I like persuasive writing. I love doing research. I love history. That was my major in college.
Okay.
And so like knowing how government works, like trying to make a good argument. And I started learning about like how does public relations work, how does communications work, and like how to be an effective communicator. And then when I was burned out on being a lawyer, I went back to my alma mater, Trinity University, and I got a job as a staff member in the computer science department. And that's how I met my husband, who's a cybersecurity expert. And he was giving a guest lecture as an alumnus. And but I met these like faculty who were, this is like in the early days of blogging and podcasting and stuff. And I was like, these are really amazing tools. And the entry barriers are very low. Like the cost to start with some of these tools is very low. And so that kind of was planted in my mind. And then I got married, I had kids, and there was like, okay, I'm trying to communicate about education. How do I do this? So like I have friends on the philanthropy side that were helping new charter schools come, like Great Hearts and Basis and Idea, like those, they were helping those schools to grow. But the missing piece was the parent communication. And I was like, this looks like fun. I think I could learn, right. I can teach myself these tools like WordPress, and I can learn to edit photos and things like that. And then and it became my passion. And then by 2017, we got funding and formed a nonprofit, and we have a team, and it's a thing.
Amazing. It's so neat to hear your story, because you started way back in 2012, and then now nonprofit, which is awesome. Yeah, so how does it feel to be a nonprofit now? What are the differences between just kind of the birth of it and then
I mean,
out of curiosity?
I'm just so happy every day to get to work on stuff that I'm passionate about. And I feel so lucky that like I have resources to be able to, like, I can buy Facebook ads, and I can hire designers to make a better website. And like, it's not just limited by like just what I can figure out. And
that's awesome.
Yeah. And then to network with like people in other states and other cities. Like, so there's
super cool.
There's an organization called National Parents Union that is like super powerful. Like these super active parents, in like states all across the country. There's delegates all over the place, and they're full of ideas of like, like whatever's going on in your state, like how do you make good trouble and make things better in your state? And then there's an organization called National School Choice Week, and in January they put on these yellow scarves and they have rallies, and it's to raise awareness, because that's the key time in enrollment season. Like that's and so just making people aware that they have these choices.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Fascinating. I feel like I could talk to you all night. Well, super cool. Well, have you ever worked with animal outreach companies in the past? Have you ever had animals come to classrooms for your kids or anything at all?
Yes. Okay. So
what is your experience there? Or going to the zoo or doing tours or anything?
Yeah. So we've had a zoo membership for a good long time.
Oh, there you go.
Okay. So
San Antonio Zoo. Yeah.
When my son was in second grade, it was his first year as a charter school student, and the last book they read for literature was Charlotte's Web.
Oh, very good.
And so we had an end of year party about Charlotte's Web.
What grade was he in at that point?
Second grade.
Okay. Great.
Yes. So my suggestion was, I was like, hey, I have this friend. He works at Edwards Aquifer Authority, and his hobby, he keeps cockroaches and this, that, and spiders. And so I remember like my son's second grade teacher had this like tarantula, and he was like, so sure enough, they had like live tarantulas, like to represent Charlotte,
Of course, yeah.
I mean, as you do, right?
Yeah, of course.
It's become a tradition, even though I don't have a second grader anymore.
Right.
I've seen subsequent Charlotte's Web parties with actual spiders. So yeah.
And you guys are animal fans. You've been to the zoo and things like that. So what is your kind of experience with some of the animals that like creepy crawlies, snakes, things like that? Yeah. Do you have much experience at all?
I haven't, not so much. When people ask me about animals, I say, I'm a plant person.
Oh, okay.
But
I'm not.
But it's not that I'm like scared of animals. Like I really appreciate animals. And like we do, like one of the things our family did during the pandemic was to get out of the house safely is we would use our state parks pass and go to lots of places.
Very good.
We started using this
lots
app
of
to
distancing
like find,
and everything. Yeah.
Right.
But still getting out, which is so important.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And if we see something like a butterfly or a centipede or like a harvestman spider, we try to like get the app out and figure out like,
super cool.
Can we get some badges?
You can ID them and of course, respect them and everything else. Right. I'm sure you guys are. Yes, we're going to see some animals. I just wanted to make sure we got through Inga's part 2. Great work, Inga. Ricky is saying, congratulations. That is so nice. So yeah, let's go ahead and meet some animals. And thank you for teaching me all about what you guys do. It's super fascinating. It's definitely out of my bubble of understanding. So I'm learning too. But it would be nice to, to refer people over to you guys, because we do a lot with teachers and we do a lot with moms and grandmas and dads. So I know that's a very big need for them to make sure they get the best education. And that's kind of why we opened up in the first place too, is to be something different, to open people's eyes up in different ways about what we care about and encourage everybody to respect animals that we love. And of course, my background is in zoology, and I used to be a veterinary technician, and before that, a horse trainer. I've done all the things. And eventually we ended up opening up our own company. And so now we bring animals to classrooms, we bring animals to events, animal therapy. If you want animal therapy, we can do that. We work with sensory children and things, or adults too. It's for all ages, which is super cool. But of course, we're going to focus today on kind of classroom type stuff. So please feel free to ask me all the questions you would like to know about the animals we're going to meet. What is your favorite animal? Well, we can both answer. What is your favorite animal?
Oh,
you have a favorite?
At least at zoos. Okay, so like at the Houston Zoo, they have gorillas and chimpanzees, and I love watching the behavior. And like as a young kid, like growing up in San Diego, they have orangutans at the San Diego Zoo, which is an amazing zoo. And
the Waco Zoo has orangutans as well. It's actually a really nice habitat. They have large apes over there.
Okay, yeah, and like thinking about like human evolution, right? We have common ancestors with the great apes. And just their behavior, and like I'm grateful that the zoos are protecting them, because I know in the wild it's very hazardous for
lots of animals, honestly, but great apes are mostly because their habitats are going away. Just like any larger animal, they need large habitats, and if the forest is gone, they can't live. And also they're hunted and everything else, as you probably know. So that's a very good thing to bring up. Is I've worked in several zoos and aquariums, and a lot of times zoos and aquariums get a bad reputation, but they're actually doing a lot of the saving of the animals, especially in the wild. They're funding conservation, they're funding saving the habitats and making sure they're protected by either the barriers that need to be there in the wild, or the people that need to actually defend the animals. So a lot of that needs money, and that's why when you go to a zoo, you're paying for a ticket. So all those things kind of play into that. But let's go ahead and meet one of our animals. It's not a gorilla. It's actually an amphibian. No. So here once in a while, if you're new to us and you're watching from SA Charter Moms today, we do have all sorts of animals, and we have over 75 animal ambassadors and over 100 animals that actually live right here with us. We are home-based and live in our home, and our animals do too, and you're going to see them tonight. Yay! Sorry you guys can't come on the tour with us. Maybe next time. But we have mostly animals that can travel. We have animals that can basically ride with us in our vehicle and go to classrooms and very easily be brought indoors. So we don't have gorillas, we don't have giraffes, we don't have elephants, things like that. But in the future, we would like to have some sort of property where people can come on, not just you guys, but other people can take tours and do maybe some, private events and things like that at our facility. And maybe we won't have those animals travel. They'll just be with us. But for now, we have smaller animals, and you're about to meet one of our amphibians. And I'm going to bring her into view in just a second once I get situated. Her name is Frances, and she is actually a frog. And you guys out there that are familiar with Once in a Wild, you've seen Frances before. I'm going to make sure she's in focus really quick, and we'll be out of focus a little bit. But this is Frances the frog, and she's an African bullfrog. And of course, they come from Africa. And you won't see them in the United States, but we have bullfrogs here in the US as well that are a little bit similar, but they're kind of a different shape. So you'll notice that she's quite a round shape. And this species of frog gets very large. So one thing that makes them unusual as a frog goes is their size, male to female. Most of the time, females are big and males are smaller in most frogs and most amphibians, but they're the opposite. So the males are quite large, and they can get the size of a volleyball. They are huge, and they weigh a few pounds, and the females actually stay smaller. Now, she's a girl, we think, because of her size and her age. So by now, she's around 3 or 4. She should be a lot bigger than this if she were a boy. But since we think she's a girl, she also makes noises that sound like a girl's noises, because bullfrogs sound like bullfrogs, kind of like a burping noise, right? But that's only the boys. Boys use that vocalization to attract females. And the females just kind of have like a cute little beep, beep, beep noise, and they barely make any noise at all. So she hasn't really made too much noise as an individual. And I have heard her making little peeps. So I think, oh, Right on cue. We have another animal ready to come on that's making peeps too. But they do sound totally different. So to my best guess, she is a girl. So Frances, I mean, that can go either way. So she had that name from the beginning when we got her as a girl. But she is an African bullfrog. These guys can get the size of a volleyball when male, but when female, they're smaller than that. So they're about half that size. But she'll still be a pretty large frog when she grows up all the way. Right now, she's kind of a teenager-sized frog. And these guys are really neat. They are, of course, amphibians. They are slimy. And I don't recommend you guys out there watching to pick up frogs because we can actually harm frogs with our oil on our skin. If you didn't know it, humans are kind of dirty. And we have oils just like any primate, gorillas, chimpanzees, monkeys, we're all primates. And we have oil on our skin. And a lot of animals are oily. Most mammals are like
anything
that.
with hair.
Anything with hair and even feathers too. Some animals are feathered and oily too. So the amphibians have a slime coat on their body, which is very, very sensitive to toxins, to anything in their environment, even disease, which is fun, right? They're an indicator species. They can tell us whenever the earth is actually becoming ill. So they're one of those animals we have to watch out and make sure that they're healthy. And they're kind of like, you've heard of a canary in a coal mine. It's the same kind of deal. So back in the old days when the coal miners would go underground, they would take a little bird, either a sparrow, canary, something like that in a little cage, which is terrible. But that would tell them as an alarm if there were toxins coming up from the earth. So amphibians are kind of like that naturally. So if anything happens to our planet, they're some of the first ones to experience that change. They're also very, very sensitive to climate change as well. So anything warming the earth or cooling the planet, like we had our crazy winter time last time, right? So that definitely affects them very, very poorly as well. But they're really important to just kind of leave alone in your own environment. They help us out a lot. Do you know how they help us?
They eat bugs?
Eat lots of bugs. So mosquitoes, flies, roaches, all those insects have their place in nature, but too many can make us ill too. And we need to make sure and have a healthy planet from now on. So leaving frogs alone, even if you love them, don't pick them up. We don't want to harm them on accident with our oil, our lotions, our hand sanitizers, soaps on our skin. I have rinsed my hands ahead of time. That's how I'm able to hold her safely. And also their slime can make you sick. So things like salmonella and fun things that we can get if we forget to wash our hands and go eat a snack or something. So kids, don't pick them up. Just admire from a distance and let them do their job. You won't see this species in your own backyard unless you live in Africa, which you might. Hello. But here in the United States, we have other bullfrogs and other frogs. How old is she? She is around 3 or 4 years old, and they can live into their 30s. So she has a long way to go. We love her, so we certainly hope so. These guys are carnivores as adults, but of course, when they're babies, they're underwater and they're an egg and then a tadpole when they hatch out. And the tadpoles actually do eat vegetables too. So they'll eat like algae and other vegetation. That gives them more options to hurry up and grow up so they can get big and strong and a little more safe before they grow up into a frog. But once they become an adult, most frogs are carnivores and they eat anything they want, as long as it's small enough to fit into their mouth. Let me know if you guys have any other questions. Do you have any questions about Frances so far?
Well, I keep thinking about like children's literature and like children's books. And like, so one of my favorite books that I read with my kids growing up was when they were little was Frog and Toad.
Oh, cool.
So
I'm not familiar with that.
So it's a series of like, so Frog and Toad are friends, and they of course they wear like little jackets and pants and stuff.
Oh, super cute.
Yeah, and so actually one of my favorite Twitter accounts to follow, it's like it spits out like random quotes from Frog and Toad because they're really good buddies. So like they make cookies for each other, they plant a garden together, they go on an adventure.
Very accurate.
They're really good friends. Yeah, but they
so cute.
But yeah, Frog does look a lot like Frances.
Like Frances.
Yeah.
So frogs and toads it's debatable on what's a true frog and what's a true toad, because technically toads are more dry, they have more bumps, things like that, usually a desert type species. But there are a few toads, quote unquote toads, that are named toads that are actually frogs. So it's super confusing. They're almost the same thing. And of course they're in the same family, the frog family, and more down the line, the amphibians. Amphibians are animals like frogs, toads, newts, salamanders, axolotls. All those guys are amphibians, and amphibians start their life in the water as an egg. mom lays the eggs and dad fertilizes the eggs, and it's all external, which is so interesting, just like a fish, most fish. And in this species, they actually do guard the eggs and take care of them and guard the babies too, but it's dad that does that. So Frances, as a girl, we think, right, she wouldn't do anything. She would just lay the eggs and say, goodbye, eggs. And dad would actually establish a territory and guard his babies, and very instinctive about protecting them. Even if their water dries up, because usually it's going to be like in a puddle pond, something small in the savannas of Africa where they live in. They're going to basically hibernate or actually estivate during the dry season, and they pop out of the ground. They're going to seek any body of water will do, because it's only maybe like a month that they're going to spend that time anyway with their baby. So they'll find like a puddle or something like that. But if the water dries up and it's not enough rain that season, dad will start digging. He'll dig down, he'll dig across to make sure water comes into where his babies are, because they need the water to grow up. They need the water to survive. He was a super good dad. Frances, not so much. She's a girl, but we're not planning on breeding her anyway. But that is such a neat fact about them, is they're great single dads. Just like you dads out there that are looking for schools for your youngins, you can check out SA Charter Moms, even though it's SA Charter Moms and not dad. That is okay. I'm going to back up and refocus on us really quick. Sorry for the blocking. So you guys can see us again. Like I said, she's around 3 or 4. What do we feed her? So since she's a carnivore, she can eat all sorts of different other animals than her, right? She would eat things like, at this age, she would eat things like large worms, like super worms, and maybe large crickets, maybe large roaches. But this species can also eat rodents. They can eat snakes. They can eat other frogs. They're not really usually friendly with toads and frogs, like in the book. So not real life. They actually are solitary most of the time, unless they're taking care of their babies or it's breeding time. So if they see another frog that's small enough, that's also dinner. They're very opportunistic, because in the wild, they never know when their next meal is going to come around. And they do estivate or hibernate. It's kind of like a hibernation for the dry season. So they have to gain a lot of weight to survive the dry season, because that's the only seasons they worry about in Africa, is the dry season and the wet season. Wet season, they're out and enjoying life and eating all the things, but dry season, they have to survive, right? Y'all see her? That's the only challenge with having a smaller animal, is we get to be out of focus. And any questions from you, Inga?
Well, I'm thinking about amphibians and in Texas, we have a lot of water is a big issue, and keeping waters and springs flowing, because there are amphibians that live in the springs.
That is true.
So she's from Africa, but amphibians are really important for the ecosystem in Texas, and it's an indicator, because like if we're keeping our springs healthy, the amphibians keep doing their thing. But if we don't allow enough water to come out through those springs, then it's a sign that we're not taking care of our waterways.
That is correct. And fish too. Fish will show us that as well. But amphibians are the first ones to kind of show signs of stress or anything at all like that, I think. Oh, here we go. Laura says, my 8-year-old son Chase is watching online and would like to know, did you find the animals or did you buy the animals? So every animal, I don't mean to keep blocking you, I'm just fixing the focus point. Every animal here at Once in a Wild in our animal collection, our animal ambassadors, has their own story. Frances, we actually did purchase from a reputable breeder, and she was only like this big when we got her, about the size of her head. And in the 3 or 4 years that we've had her, she's gotten this big and will little by little get bigger and bigger. She was purchased from a breeder, rather, not by a breeder, from a breeder. But we do also rescue animals as well, but we absolutely do not take animals out of the wild unless they are rehabbed animals or animals that are legally deemed non-releasable or something like that. We're not going out and collecting animals in Africa and bringing them all the way back to Texas. That's too much work, but it's also not ethical as well. That's a really good question. A lot of our animals are sourced from rescue situations. So animals that have been found roaming lost and had to be placed for one reason or another. Animals that maybe somebody didn't want anymore for some reason. That happens quite a bit, especially with reptiles and exotic animals, because some people have an idea of how an animal is going to be as a pet. And then maybe that animal got bigger than they expected. Maybe they're going to live too long, or not live too long, live for their taste to take care of for the rest of their life. So there's a lot of different stories. But Frances was actually purchased by us as a tiny baby, and we got to raise her up from a baby frog. Technically a frog, so not a tadpole or anything like that, but she was already a frog, but she was only this big. And then from there they grow bigger.
you mentioned that, like sometimes like people like they take on having a pet or taking care of an animal and then realize like, oh, this is maybe more than we committed to. Yes. And so we actually have a couple of posts on our site related to caring for animals. One is one of my friends is great about fostering dogs, and so she explained like why it's a great activity as a family, because like you're fostering, so it's not as much of a commitment, but you're providing a really important service because you're keeping these animals out of shelters where they might not make it out of the shelter.
Exactly.
And one thing she's done is like she helped to foster military working dogs who went on to do important work for national security, but she helped them when they were puppies and got them comfortable with humans and things like that. And then another post, Amy Johnson, who's one of our consultants, like she wrote a post about volunteer opportunities. So like, there's animal shelters that need, and they always, at least pre-COVID, I don't know what the current status is.
True. That is very true. You can check.
Yeah, but they need helpers, and often like you don't have to be 18. You can even teenagers can help. And
that's really good
to
know.
Learn about animals, but not maybe have the full commitment of taking care of an animal.
Yeah, because I know a lot of people during the pandemic, and good and bad, some people wanted to just get an animal to keep them company, which sometimes works out just fine, and sometimes it doesn't. So I know a lot of animals ended up homeless during the pandemic because I don't think it met everybody's expectations of what it would be to like have a puppy at home. And then they didn't think about, what happens when the pandemic's over and I go back to work and yada, yada, yada. So yeah, there's definitely so many things to think about when you take in any animal. So fostering is a good idea to kind of get a feel of what it's like to have a puppy or a dog or a kitten or whatever they're fostering, bunny, who knows. But yes, we deal with of course exotic animals, but we always encourage you guys, if you're getting an animal of any kind, domestic, exotic, whatever it is, do your research. Always do your research. Make sure you have a good idea. You can never have a full idea until you're in it, but have a good idea of what to expect. And not everybody wants a frog. Not everybody can take care of a frog, but also there's animals like tortoises, iguanas, other lizards. There's so many that we have taken in, tarantulas, that people didn't necessarily want to have anymore. So that's a great question. So we didn't just like go grab animals out of the wild. We always want to keep animals wild when we can. They belong there for a reason, right? But I'm glad you asked that. Is the male or female bigger? I think we answered that already, but I don't mind talking about that again. So the females are smaller because they literally lay the eggs and leave. But that is very, very unusual for frog species. Most of the time females... Oh my goodness. Yes. Sometimes she's just so wiggly. So this type of frog in general, and most frogs don't really like to be held, but she's pretty comfortable being held for a frog. But we'll give her a break in just a minute. What was I saying?
Oh, but females are smaller.
Yes.
They
usually
lay eggs and run.
Yes, usually, well, for this species they do, but usually in frogs in general, they grow bigger. That way they can have so many eggs. Because most amphibians have a lot of eggs. And that's for insurance purposes. In case something happens to them in the wild, they get eaten by all sorts of other animals. They're prey. And most frogs are prey to something. They're predators, but also prey too. So they're kind of in the middle of the food chain. Most predators have predators also. There's very few animals that don't have any predators. But when they're babies especially. So most frogs will have like hundreds of babies. So having a nice hefty weight on a female is usually ideal to lay lots of eggs. And as you can see, she's not a skinny frog, even though she is a female. But the females in this species are smaller because the male does all the protecting. So they just grow really big, really strong. They even have very sharp teeth that they can defend their brood with. And what do we feed her? I forgot to answer. So worms, crickets, roaches, mice, all sorts of things Frances eats. So pretty cool. Well, I think Frances is ready to go, but you're welcome to ask me some more questions if you have them. What do you think your kids would want to know about Frances? Frances is very popular. She's probably one of our most popular amphibians. We also have axolotls here once in a while. That's one of my favorite animals. But Frances is a little bit easier to bring to programs than axolotls because axolotls live in water, but I have done that. So we just have to set them up ahead of time and put them in a kind of a display, like a mini display for classrooms and things. But all these animals that I'm showing you today and many, many more, so many more, can come to classroom visits and teach your kids about amphibians and all sorts of other animals. We're in the splash zone over here, and it's not what you think. So that is another actual good point to bring up for frogs. Is sometimes relieving themselves is going to be a bit of a defense mechanism for wild frogs. And then if that happens to be the frog that you're holding and they relieve themselves on you, first of all, gross. Don't put yourself in that situation. But secondly, that takes away their weapon. So that is kind of their defense mechanism, their weapon. I'm going to wash my hands while I'm talking. And then for the next real predator, like who knows what, maybe a cat or a dog picks them up. They don't have that defense mechanism the next time, as long as it's like the same day. So you're taking away their defense. So that's not good either. And also their slime. Their slime can also be a defense too. As you can see, I'm using hand sanitizer, but not till after I put Frances down because I don't want to hurt her, right? But I do want to make sure and stay clean for the next animal.
Yeah.
All right.
Remember that was when I was talking to oh, so like I'm picturing, you know, like we're gonna have these school discovery day events,
Yes.
right? And I know, so you guys like logistically, like I was like, oh, do we have to have this outdoors? But but y'all have like us like mats and things, ways to have it indoors, but it stays clean.
Of course, yeah, that's a great question. So most classrooms, I mean, I've been to hard floor classrooms too, and they don't usually mind, or gymnasiums and things like that. A stage, most of the time, it's super easy to clean up if something happens, but it's rare that anything does happen. And I do have, of course, like a little, like you said, a little mat that I can roll out, or we have like all sorts of methods that we can keep you guys clean. And we always clean up after ourselves too. So it's not a problem. Typically, I've never had a complaint about that. But that's a great question. A lot of people assume, oh, zoo animals, that means we have to be outside. We can be outside if you want, but we can be inside if you want. And it's hot here in Texas most of the time. It's hot. Sometimes it's cold. So indoors is a little better, in my opinion, for teaching kids that are, of course, in in-person school. We also do virtual school as well. I don't know if that's going to be happening very much more this year, but they could broadcast into the classroom, and then the kids just watch it from the classroom.
Yeah, and then there's homeschools, and then also
that's
like
true.
micro schools. So like micro school is kind of a new term. It's where like a group of families come together. Like, well, another term for it is pandemic pod, right? So like if, let's say, a group of like families are like, okay, we're gonna expand our quarantine to include this many families.
Oh,
and
cool.
then we'll all get together in somebody's living room, and you know, one parent teaches math, and then the next day we're going to go to this other house and they teach history and this and that. And that way it's like your kids have some friends, and like, so like, you know, for kids who couldn't get vaccinated, and like, you know, it's like if you would just open your pandemic pod just a little bit bigger, then your kids can have some socialization. And then, but like micro schools existed before the pandemic, and I think they will continue. I think micro schools and homeschools are going to be bigger in the future than they were before the pandemic, because it's one of those like shifts that the pandemic sped up, like remote work, right? Like people, they have their pandemic puppies, and now they work from home and get to have their pandemic puppy on their lap while they're working. So yeah,
we're all going to be adapting, and I know it's never it's going to be fine, but it just makes me curious. Like, we never know what's going to happen in the future. We're always going to adapt, just like we have both adapted in our companies, right? But I you know, the teaching the kids about the, you know, maybe it could be a science class, or it could just be a general elementary class. A lot of times people have hired us too just for field trips. So they just want something, you know, fun for the kids to do for either a virtual or in-person field trip, if you will, because field trips weren't really much of a thing these last couple of years either, right? And so, and I think that we are actually a little bit more affordable than a field trip, because we come to them. We don't have to worry about traveling. It's a little safer. Yeah, transportation, all of that, and signing waivers. And if the kids don't want to be involved with touching the animals with our presentations, they don't have to touch the animals. So there's no really waiver involved. It's actually pretty simple. So that's a great question though about indoors versus outdoors. A lot of people in general, when they call us, they're like, can you even go indoors? Like, what if it rains? You know, things like that. So we're very, very flexible. So there's no worries there. We will help you out. So we have our next animal, and feel free to, oh, here we go. This is the triplets from Florida and their cousin from Maryland. Nice to see you guys. I'm sure I didn't recognize Sam at all. Hello, Sam. That must be the cousin? Question mark.
Okay, so shout out to Florida, which is an excellent state for school choice.
Oh, very good. I didn't know that.
Even better than Texas, because you can even go to private schools on school choice in Florida.
Super cool. I actually went to college in Florida. So let's meet another, well, a kind of misunderstood critter, if you will. She is really cool. And again, I'm going to have to put her like kind of close to the camera. So this little girl / big girl, her name is Blondie. I'm going to get her situated in my hands first before because it's kind of an awkward angle to hold her up to the camera. But this is Blondie. You guys know Blondie that have seen our show before. But those of you that are new, I'm going to get her. And usually she sits perfectly still, but you know, she's going to make me work today. Whoa, Blondie. Just going to hang out
She's
onto our
doing, like, the
keyboard.
cat on the keyboard thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Tarantula
Cat on a
poetry.
keyboard. So they're hairy like a cat. And don't worry, you guys, it's a very like kind of short little tumble that she took just now. She's okay. So this is Blondie. She's an Arizona blonde tarantula. I put my hand back here so you can kind of see her a little bit better. This is a species found, of course, in the United States, mostly in Arizona, but you can also see them in surrounding states adjacent to Arizona. And they're mostly found in a desert. So a little bit opposite of a savanna that we just saw with the bullfrog from Africa. These guys are typically a drier climate. They don't need to wait till the wet season to come out, and they don't really need to brumate or hibernate at all. They're typically going to be found on the ground and even underground, kind of like in a little cave situation like this, maybe even more room underground. And this species of tarantula, they don't have to eat every day. In fact, they don't have to eat every month. They can go 6 months without eating very easily, and they can go a full year without eating with no consequences. It's not necessarily ideal for them, but that makes a lot of sense when they live in a desert habitat, when there's a lot less resources, water, they don't even need water, they don't have to drink water, and a lot less food because of that, and a very warm climate. However, they can also handle cooler weather as well, because deserts tend to get cooler at night, and a lot of people aren't aware of that if you've never been in a desert. And this species is actually primarily nocturnal, like most tarantulas are. That means they come out at night, right? So the desert heat is very, very warm, and these guys are sensitive to temperature change, so they typically will hide away, and if they come out at all, it's going to be at night. But we have all sorts of tarantulas and, of course, spiders all over the US and all over the world. In fact, there's tarantulas all over the planet except for Antarctica. So you'll see spiders and tarantulas all over the place, and they do get a very bad reputation for being scary, for being dangerous, but they're actually very important, just like the frogs. I think more people enjoy and like frogs more than spiders. A lot of people have arachnophobia, or maybe like not real arachnophobia. They're just a little bit leery about spiders. But spiders, for the most part, are harmless to humans. Now, she does have venom. Most spiders do, not every species does, but tarantulas have venom. But their venom is designed to turn their food into a drink so they can actually consume it. They don't have any teeth, so they can't chew their food at all. But they do have fangs, which are kind of like teeth, but they're more like a needle. And there's 2 of them. And they will bite into you like a cricket or a roach, similar diet to Francis, actually. But once they catch it and pierce them with their fangs, then they put venom in their food, and then they turn their food into a drink, and they can drink their food with a straw mouth, which is called a proboscis, kind of like a fly's mouth. And that is why they have venom at all. It's not really for defense, although some spiders do bite for defense, because that's one way to stay safe from your enemies, right? But most tarantulas would rather run away, hide, be passive, not have anything to do with you whatsoever, or they sometimes will throw their hairs. They have hair all over their body, which is for a lot of things, including feeling vibrations. They also use it to protect their bodies, of course, just like our hair protects our head and body. And also they do they can rub their abdomen and actually throw hairs into the air, and that will potentially go into the eyes of predators and maybe give them something to scratch, and the spider can get away. But all of those things typically happen first, hiding, running away, hair, defense, before a bite occurs. So they're really not a dangerous animal at all. In fact, they're really beneficial. They eat a lot of flies, roaches, mosquitoes, those kind of bugs that make us sick, and they're super cool. And no tarantula can actually kill a person. There's no deadly tarantula on the planet. Tarantulas may have stronger venom than other tarantulas, some more than others, and it might be painful like a wasp, but you're going to be okay. So that being said, I'm holding her, but I don't recommend you guys holding her just like the frog situation. We don't want to pick them up in the wild unless you're an entomologist or somebody studying them, right? We're not talking to you guys, but the average person should just leave them alone, and they'll leave you alone. And like all arachnids, which are tarantulas and scorpions and maybe ticks and some other animals, they have 8 walking legs. Whoa, just trying to situate her so you can see. They have 8 walking legs. There we go. And they have 2 arm-like appendages in the front, which are shorter, and those are called pedipalps, the little short arms in the front there. So 8 walking legs and 2 arms called pedipalps, and they have those 2 fangs that I was talking about, and you can see her fangs underneath here. If I situate her this way, those 2 black kind of shiny pieces right there are her 2 fangs. Typically, they're going to be underneath her head like this and out of the way while she walks around. And if they need to use them, they swing forward just like a viper's fangs or any other venomous snake. And they will be able to use them to pierce their prey, like I said before, and give venom to their food. And that's how they do that. But they also have 2 body parts like any other arachnid, right? Instead of 3 like an insect, she's got 2 center body parts, the cephalothorax, which is head and body combined, and the abdomen, which is her hind end there. And this species of tarantula has 8 eyes. You would think they could see really well, but they can't. So those little 8 eyes are mainly for kind of sensing a little bit of movement, shadows, things like that. But their sense of touch is far better and more sensitive than their sense of vision.
That makes sense for nighttime.
Yes, it does make sense for nighttime, especially where they live, which is going to be like underground and kind of like hidden away. So, and they also make webs. So just like other spiders, like Charlotte, it doesn't look like Charlotte's web. It's not like a pretty like design in the corner, like some pig or whatever. Or what was the other thing she wrote?
I should know this.
It was a really big word, but anyway, it'll come to me later. But Charlotte's web was kind of like the classic spider web you think of, like in the corner, like all pretty, and so they make them every night. Yeah, really, really intricate. They kind of make them every day and things like that. A tarantula's web is very different. It looks more like Halloween cobweb decorations. They're kind of messy looking, but it serves the purpose of creating like a nice soft bed or carpet for them to lay on. And it can also function as almost like a doorbell. So they would feel, instead of hear, animals at their front door or back door or wherever, something that crawls in. It could be a bug to eat, or it could be an enemy to avoid. So that helps them with all their hairs and everything to be able to feel vibration. So they're going to live underground regardless of nighttime, daytime. It's going to be dark in there. So that makes a lot of sense. Okay, what does she like to eat? Or well, no, that was the frog. Well, they eat similar things.
Let's see. The question about mosquitoes. That's a new question.
Let me see. Oh, here we go. Can she eat mosquitoes? Because I hate mosquitoes. I don't blame you. They're not my favorite animal either. Roaches are my least favorite animal. Not necessarily some of the roaches, but the wild ones here in Texas, they're really scary to me. And also carry diseases sometimes, right? So she would eat more larger bugs and insects, and maybe even other arachnids too sometimes. Maybe even like small mice and things like that as a large spider like this. But as a spider in general, she used to be small. So she could probably eat flies and mosquitoes a little bit more easily. And of course, there are other spiders and other tarantulas that are smaller than this that eat flies and mosquitoes more readily. So it just kind of depends. But when these guys eat, they tend to eat big. So they'll eat like a big roach, a big cricket, something like that. And she likes crickets the best as an individual. That's just kind of her picky ways. But as a species, they can eat all kinds of stuff.
So bats eat a lot of mosquitoes, right?
Huh?
Bats.
Bats do eat a lot of mosquitoes. That's one of the best ways to get rid of mosquitoes in your backyard. This is a natural way, is to actually put up a bat box.
Oh,
do you know
cool.
Anything about that?
I think I've seen them. Like they're surprisingly narrow. Like,
yes,
the bats fit in these little tiny.
The bats are like this big. They're like super tiny, and they're about this size actually. Yes, so there's specifically like bat boxes you can purchase or build. I prefer to just buy them. If I'm gonna make something, I'm gonna buy it like already pre-made. That way, it's the right one, right? But you can actually hang them up against the side of your house or against a tree. And usually bats will come in and have somewhere to live. And then at night, you won't even know they're there. Like they'll just be out eating mosquitoes all night for you. That's really important. A lot of animals do eat mosquitoes. I had somebody tell me the other day that mosquitoes have no purpose. Not really true. They are eaten by a ton of animals, so they are a food source. But other than that, not my favorite. You are the cousin. Okay, good to know, Sam. Thank you. It's nice to have you on here. We have the triplets on here all the time. Let me see. Mosquitoes. How long do they live? I think that was actually about the spider, the other question. So I'll refer to that one in just a second, or I'll go back to that one. How long do they live? So this type of tarantula can live into their 30s as well, just like Francis the frog. However, that's only the girls. So girl tarantulas live a lot longer than boy tarantulas, and typically are bigger, but not super noticeably bigger to the untrained eye. They do get kind of heftier looking and live longer by default. But the boy tarantulas, you know how long they live? For most species across the board.
Like a year?
That's a good guess. It's a little bit longer than that. It's usually anywhere from 1 to 5.
Wow.
So they only make it to 5. These guys, if they're girls, they can make it to 30. And of course, they do have the babies, right? the females have the babies, the males just do their part and then they leave. But typically, if you see tarantulas wandering around, especially here in the United States, they're the males. The males will have a shorter life expectancy. They grow faster, become adults faster, but they're looking to breed a lot more often. And the females just hang out in their burrows and wait for their man to come to the front door. And hopefully she's in the mood. Otherwise, she can actually source him as a meal. Fun to be a male tarantula, but that's just the way it is.
Risky. Yes.
Yeah, it's risky, right? They have to take that risk in order to actually procreate. Fun. But a lot of times people will see them wandering and skittering around and they're scared of them, but they don't really mean any harm. They're literally looking for love. not to harm you at all. So pretty cool. And that's only the females, like I said, that live that long. And that's all tarantulas. Some tarantulas live less than 30 or more than 30. But typically the females live a long time and the males do not. How many babies do they have? Good question. A lot. So depending on the tarantula, they can have anywhere, I think the range is anywhere from 100 to 1,000, depending on, the species and the fertility and all of that. And they have very tiny little eggs that they put in a egg purse or egg sac with their web. That's another function of their web, is to hold their eggs. And then what does she like to eat? I think I answered that already. Roaches and crickets are her main favorites, but crickets seem to be her very favorites. And Blondie, I actually got as an adult. She wasn't really a rescue. She was more like here, can you take her kind of situation? And that was fine. I said yes, long time ago. We've had her for around 5 years. And but we got her as an adult, so we don't know her age or anything like that. But I was told that she really liked roaches, but for us, she didn't really care for them. So I guess she's set in her ways with the crickets.
Do you breed the roaches and crickets, or do you order them
I don't breed them yet. I would love to do that in the future, but I haven't ever done it before, so I don't know how to set all that up. Personally, I could probably research and do it all because I do know a lot of people, but I would love for somebody to come help me and to be able to raise all of those myself, because it would be a lot more cost effective. Yeah. That's another thing we have to buy and find, because during the pandemic, which was interesting that I didn't really expect, was a lot of the feeder insects and a lot of the feeder rodents and things that we do purchase for our animals to be able to feed them, that actually was hard to find during the pandemic. And I don't know, I don't really know why. I think a lot of those businesses went out of business and things like that, so I think there was just less sources for pet stores and everything else to actually find. But that was a great question. We should be doing that.
Well, I've known people, some aquarium keepers that, like if you have carnivorous fish, if you have fish that eat other fish, right, that are top of the food chain, sometimes they'll breed goldfish or
totally
easy to breed fish and then use them for feeding. So, and on one hand, it's like,
or rodents,
right, or breed mice. It's like, well, but that's how nature works. So
yes, I mean, and it's not for everybody. A lot of people think that they want a certain exotic animal and they realize what they eat. I have so many people tell me they want a bearded dragon or they want a leopard gecko or some kind of lizard, and they're like, oh my gosh, they eat roaches and crickets. Never mind. They don't want to deal with it, and it's not for everybody. But a lot of people do bounce right into getting those animals without researching, and then they're in a bad way because they're in that situation they don't understand. Or a snake. Snakes have to eat rodents and things like that, and you have to feed them that. They don't eat salad or fruits and vegetables, right?
I think that makes the classroom encounters really productive, or having a party or an event, because it's you can see how it feels to be this close to a spider, and that's true. That's true. Kind of try it on for size and help appreciate why these animals are so special and why they need to be in the wild too, because they all fill a niche in a role in the ecosystem.
They sure do. And we want to make sure and teach kids and adults too, because let's be real, it's for adults as well, to respect animals in the wild. And not to be like, oh, I'm afraid of it, so I'm going to harm it. So, but it's not about you. It's about the entire planet, right? And how it functions as a whole. So these guys need to be out in the environment to be able to, have that balance in their little ecosystem. They're a top predator. They're, I mean, they're the big bad wolf in their own ecosystem underground in the desert where they live for this specific species, and terrifying to some animals, right? But they also fill a niche of being food for other animals too. So there's so many examples of this, but a lot of animals that were almost hunted to extinction or hunted to extinction, it actually messed up the whole balance of things, like alligators. I don't know if you're familiar with alligators were almost hunted to extinction way back in the old days when we were colonizing and everything, because they thought, oh, they're super dangerous to us humans, so we need to just wipe them all out. But they're one of the biggest animals that actually change their environment. So
in
because
wetlands.
they in the wetlands everywhere they were in, especially down in Florida and everything, they were an endangered species at one point, and now they're obviously thriving again, and they're protected still for a good reason. But that's just one small example. But almost any animal will definitely change their ecosystem if taken out of the environment.
Cool. I could see I saw an alligator in the wild. We were down
so
at Port
cool.
Aransas, and we went to a bird watching spot, and then like there was a platform, like a pavilion with shade where you could like hang out, and there were binoculars, you could see like different birds. And then like underneath the walkway between the pavilion and the shore, there was like about a 8-foot long alligator just in the water, just chilling.
Yeah, and they usually don't harm humans ever. It's super rare. A lot of people think that they're like, after you. And it's just not the case with most animals. Most animals really aren't after us. They're scared of us more than we're scared of them most of the time. Or they're just like, no, thank you. Let's just leave them alone. But alligators also, now that you mentioned that, typically birds will roost and nest over alligator infested or alligator habitats where there's lots of alligators, because other predators won't raid their nests as easily, like raccoons and other animals that climb, because they're not going to go through where the alligators are into the trees. And that's something I learned from living in Florida and visiting other places too. So that's something that people didn't even think of. It's like alligators protecting birds, which are technically their prey if they end up in the water, but birds actually seek out those alligator areas. Isn't that cool? Blondie, you're beautiful. So that was Blondie, the Arizona blonde tarantula. I guess we'll move on quickly to our last animal. And if you guys have other questions about Blondie or anybody at all, please let me know. Again, we have all sorts of different animals here at Once in a While, something for everybody. And typically when we visit a classroom, we do bring a variety, unless there's a specific request of, hey, we're studying just amphibians, or we're studying XYZ. It could be an ecosystem out there. It could be a continent that some classrooms are studying right now.
Or you want a spider.
Yeah, or if maybe it's just invertebrates that they want to learn about. But usually I will bring a little bit of everything for the general classrooms that are just like, oh, you pick whatever. And typically I will bring some sort of invertebrate in the mix too. But we also have birds as well, and our last animal happens to be a bird. And he will be out here with us the entire time as we're finishing up as well. So feel free if you need to interject or say anything that you would like to say. I don't want to take up everything. Come on, Sunny. Oh, you went the wrong way. Come here. He took a detour. This is Sunny the cockatiel. He is a Lutino cockatiel, which is the yellow variety. I'm going to turn this light down because he's just way too... He looks white in these lights. White in the lights. But he is a special coloration of cockatiel only seen in human care. Do you want your treat or not? Yes, I do. Here it is. And Sunny's only 7.5 to 8 months old. He is just a baby and still learning, as you saw. I kind of did a little mistake there, but that's okay. He did well. He came back to us. And these guys are found in Australia. They're native to Australia. They're in the parrot family. They're technically a parakeet, and they're related to cockatoos, more specifically as this species goes. And cockatoos and cockatiels are both from Australia, and they both have like the crest of feathers on top of their head, which can raise and lower to basically express themselves. So it's kind of like our eyebrows. If our eyebrows go up, we might be like surprised or really excited. If our eyebrows are like, we're just relaxed, or if we're like this, maybe we're angry. But to them, it means all sorts of things. Right now it's down, but he's not angry. He's just eating. But that is basically the main function of the crest on a cockatoo or cockatiel like this. Make sure he's in focus as well. There we go. And Sunny, like I said, is around 7 months old, more or less. And at 6 months old is when he was pretty much full grown. That's typically the length of time that birds take to grow up, because birds need to grow up quickly in order to not be prey. He still is prey. This is definitely a prey animal, not a carnivore like the other two we met. And they would eat things like seeds. He's eating his favorite treats, which are millet seeds, kind of similar to a grass seed that they would eat in the wild. And they also eat other vegetation too, but they're herbivores. And their main way to stay safe is by flying away or by living in great big groups called flocks, right? So this type of bird is super social. Most birds are, and most birds are a prey to some sort of animal, and some birds are predators too, right? But most birds are social in some capacity and some less than others. But this type of bird especially is very social. They will actually find a mate and stay together their whole life, which is super cute. And mom and dad will raise the babies together as well. They typically can have anywhere from 2 to maybe 5 babies, maybe a little more each time they have eggs. That's actually quite big for a big number for a parrot. Most parrots have up to 3, but smaller parrots tend to have more because, again, insurance in case they become food for other animals, so their species can keep going. But mom and dad will raise the babies. They'll sit on the eggs together when they have them. They'll take turns. And do you know what they feed their babies when they're growing up? When babies hatch out, they can't eat solid food yet. So mom and dad have to feed them. And it's something really special. Be glad you're not a parrot. Because, of course, they're birds and not mammals, so it's not going to be milk. But it's actually their puke. They're going to vomit. Yum. So most parrots, in fact, all parrots, will actually feed their babies that way. So it's not going to be like some other birds where they feed them like solids like worms or bugs, because they're not eating worms or bugs. They're eating seeds and vegetation. But when they're babies, they can't crunch up those things. So mom and dad will actually use their puke to feed them. And then that only lasts a few months, thank goodness. And then they can start to eat solid food. But they're really good parents, parents. And very smart birds, like most parrots. And a lot of birds are very smart now that I think about it. But parrots especially are super intelligent, very social. They can mimic other animals. They can mimic each other and learn actually their own kind of language within their family group as well. They have different noises that, like if you take cockatiels from this region or cockatiels from another region, they say different things to each other, which is so fascinating, just like humans, different languages. And they're pretty noisy. So having a bird in your life is quite a challenge with the noise, the mess, as you're seeing right here. He's spilling seeds all over the place. And they do use the restroom about every 5 to 10 minutes, which of course is to make them nice and lightweight so they can fly away. So birds, just like that, birds that fly, they're very lightweight. Can you turn around? Can you turn around? Thank you. They're very lightweight. We're going to switch hands. There we go. To be able to fly away quickly. That's extremely important. So every chance they get, they're going to be using the restroom in order to lighten up. And they don't really even have a bladder anyway to store all that water weight, so it just comes out. So watch out, Inga. You're in the splash zone again.
Washable. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean,
what does their natural habitat look like? Do they live in forests?
So they're going to live all over the place in Australia. These guys are variable. They're kind of just like a super common bird that you would see out there. They're gray and white with an orange and yellow face. So the face is the same color, but the rest of the body in the wild would be mostly gray with white wings, bright white in the front of their wings. But yes, they live all over the place. You can see them in cities, you can see them in savannas, forests, all over the place. As long as there's somewhere for them to perch up in a tree, they're happy, and they'll come down to the ground and eat grass seeds as well. He looks so light colored on the screen, but he's actually yellow behind the scenes, as you're seeing. And they're amazing birds, very common seen in the pet tree, but I don't recommend them for pets for everybody. They're a lot of maintenance and they're very social and intelligent. So my advice is always to do a ton of research on bird care. There's a lot to learn. We even have a video all about that on our YouTube if you want to check it out. If you're not following us, make sure and follow us on YouTube so you can actually, or subscribe, I should say, so you can watch that video and learn if you're interested in bird care. We also have a bunny care video as well that we did. But a lot of people think they know what to expect and they think it's going to be just like they see on Instagram with the bird being their best friend and everything else. And it really takes a lot of work. It's like having a child. And they can live into their late 20s. So it's a big commitment as well. Yeah. Just like the other two we met. Right. Pretty cool. But they are wonderful birds. I'm not saying that they're bad. They're just not a good pet for everybody. What do you guys have to say? Oh, nothing new yet, but please let me know. Like I said, these guys live almost as long as the other animals that we met. But care for them is getting better and better all the time. Food for them is getting better all the time. So who knows? They may live up to 30 years as well. Pretty soon. Most animals in the wild, though, don't live as long as they do in human care because, of course, we can take care of them with veterinary care. We can give them the right diet. We can make sure they're sheltered and have everything they need. And they don't have predators in our care, right? So when you take birds to interact with children, what kinds of questions do they have? Or like, how do they want to, like, do they want to, like, what do they want to do with the birds? So a lot of times they will, I can have Sunny sit in somebody's hand, and I think they just don't know what to expect until it happens to them. And a lot of times people aren't expecting his nails and things like that. He does not have sharp nails, but for the little ones, sometimes they're like, oh my gosh, what do his nails feel like? And since he's not a bird of prey, he doesn't have sharp nails, but he's got something. So a lot of times that's surprising. I found that with kids that are younger, a lot of times experiencing the animal in person, they just kind of something they didn't expect. They didn't expect some of the sights and smells and touches and things like that. When we go into a classroom, we don't necessarily have people touch a lot of the animals. Some of them, yes, but it's just it's more of a time crunch.
Yeah.
Because if you're going around and having, depending on how many students, if you have a small group, yes, we will definitely give you more touching opportunities. The 3 that we met today, more or less, typically are not going to be a touching animal, but sometimes Sunny will sit in somebody's hand. It just depends on how he's feeling as well. But for bird questions, that's a great question. A lot of times people will ask, how big do they get? What do they eat? Is it a boy or a girl, etc.? Does it talk? We do have one of our cockatiels, Evie, who does talk a lot for a cockatiel, but most of the time cockatiels are whistling and making a little bit of mimicking sound, but they are in the parrot family, so they definitely can mimic a little bit. And another way we can tell they're in the parrot family is by their beak. Their beak is curved and pointed downwards and made for eating seeds and nuts. And their toes are actually special. They have 2 toes in the front and 2 toes in the back, which makes them different than other birds that have 3 in the front and 1 in the back. Most birds are like that, the other way, and that's called zygodactyl. So 2 in the front and 2 in the back. That gives them a stronger grip overall, if there's some strong wind or something like that. But the main reason why parrots have zygodactyl toe placement and not anisodactyl, which is the 3 in 1, is to be able to climb. They can climb trees and their cage or whatever you have them on with their beak and their toes together. You've probably seen them climb up stuff, vines if they're a tropical parrot, things like that.
That's also, and I think like one of the big like aha moments that kids have in science class is learning about evolution and how like you can look at the structures of animals and what and their diet, like the beak is shaped like depending on what a bird eats, they're gonna have a different shaped beak, right? And depending on, you mentioned that like birds that are predators have different types of claws than birds that climb, and
exactly.
Like,
and there's birds are so much variety too in their feathers and everything else. Feathers are very unique to birds, right? So a lot of times I'll try to stump the kids with questions.
Because we don't have dinosaurs anymore. Right?
Yeah, I know. And these are dinosaurs now. And now we think the dinosaurs had feathers too. We're pretty sure they did. So that's pretty amazing too. But as far as the animals that are alive today, feathers only exist on birds. And not every bird has the ability to fly, but every bird has feathers. And every bird also has scales. Did you know that?
Oh, is that on their legs?
On their feet. That is right. Their legs and feet are covered in scales, just like a reptile. Yeah, so you're right. You go back to kind of the origin of species and things like that. What color are the eggs? It's not very exciting. They're just white and they're super tiny. So these guys do have quite a few babies. Like I said before, anywhere from like 2 to maybe 7 would probably be like the top amount as far as I know. Little budgies have a lot of eggs too. They can have up to 10. Which is pretty cool, but their eggs are just white. I know other birds like cassowaries and emus have like really pretty colored eggs, and those are really big birds that don't fly, but they have feathers. And penguins, of course, have feathers and don't fly either. They swim instead. So that's what makes a bird a bird. I'm trying to think of other questions, but I now I can't think of any more.
Well, I'm thinking about one of the things you asked me earlier was about like how did we adapt during the pandemic, and part of it was that we would ask instead of having the in-person events, right, which we're looking on bringing back, but we would talk to like the schools and the nonprofits that we work with, and we would say, okay, what's something that you do with your students, and how can we present that on our website and do a video, and then it's something that you can learn about at home. And, I think that what you do with these Once in a While Wednesdays, it's a great way for kids to learn about animals, even if they're at home or
absolutely.
anywhere in the world. And so like we would talk to schools and say like, okay, like we heard you have a really great art teacher, and maybe they have a lesson plan where they would teach about like the graffiti artist Basquiat. And then they would adapt that, they already have the lesson plan. They can adapt that to a blog post. And so we have that on our site. And then it serves as like an ambassador for the school, because if somebody comes across the website, they're researching maybe art projects that they can do at home with their kids. Then they're like doing the art project and then being like, wait, who wrote this? Oh, it's an art teacher at Democracy Prep. What's Democracy Prep? Like, oh, well, it's this charter school. It's on the east side, like
one thing leads to another. Yeah.
Right, exactly. Right. And part of it is it's this I think what's so great about like these videos, like to me, like you're a charter mom or a charter dad or a charter grandma, if you are taking charge of make of this path for your kids' education. So, whether it's choosing the neighborhood that you want to buy a house in or rent in, whether you choose a charter school or a private school or you homeschool, or what kind of enrichment activities you do, what kind of like memberships or events you go to, whether like, if you're having a party and you choose to have animals come to the party because you want the kids to do something really memorable and fun and learn about animals along the way. Like, so I feel like we're providing information so that families can like have more, like they can set their own destiny and not just sort of wait for things to happen. It's like, and I think the pandemic was kind of a wake up call. Like,
oh yeah,
that, like if you're kind of stuck at home, you have to figure out how to tap into all the resources that are out there, how to reach out, how to network. And there's so many possibilities. It can be overwhelming, but we try to like, sort of curate and recommend.
That's so great.
That we think are.
I think I would be totally lost without you guys. And I mean, how cool is that you guys can like really? I mean, you're really helping a lot of people, and we hope to help people too by even just brightening up their day. Wednesday or whatever day that you're watching. Absolutely, and we can't wait to collaborate with you guys. Is there anything else you want to tell everybody out there to be looking out for? Things coming up.
Yeah,
we're excited to be partnering with you guys as well. So
we have a bunch of posts coming up about how different schools and districts that we respect, how they're handling back to school. And so sometimes it's about like, how do you give families more flexibility? Maybe when, the state says it has to be done a certain way, but, but right. Like, families want to be able to choose their school and they want to be able to choose how their kids learn.
Yes, I bet.
Yeah. And then also like, how do we try to keep things as normal as we can while still making things safe? Because I know as a parent, like, my kids still need social interaction. They still need to talk to their friends. And my kids they're getting bigger. Like I have a tween and a teen, and they're
he's tall.
Oh yeah.
By the way.
That's true. Yeah. My son is like 6'2". And
yes, so tall.
Yeah. He's a big kid. Anytime they both kids, I'm teaching them how to cook.
Gosh.
It's like, you guys need
good
to
for
learn.
you.
Yeah. Yeah. But then, and we're having these conversations about like, what do you want to be when you grow up? And it's hard. Like, I've heard this from other families, like when no one could travel, like how do you do college tours? Like, or how do you introduce your kids to what different careers would be like if everyone's working remote and like all the offices are locked down? Like how do you do that? So we just have to get creative. Like we've gone on campus walks, like on, weekend mornings, like before the students woke up, just so we can at least see the campus without freaking anybody out.
Yeah.
It's like, we don't have the plane. It's okay.
There's so many things to consider that we took for granted before, right? So you're right. It is kind of like a big wake up call, and us opening up before the pandemic versus now. I mean, we really had to adapt, and you guys have adapted too. Everybody that's still around has had to adapt.
Yeah.
So it's a big deal, honestly. Yeah. And
we're stronger for it because think about like all this like live streaming skills that you've
I know.
And this, like,
first I was like, dude, what? I'm so scared. And now there's so many videos that you guys can watch from both of us as a charter moms and Once in a Wild, and that's also a resource too. So we're happy to be that way, and we're happy to give you guys that for free, honestly. And are you guys? Is it all free as well? You're amazing.
Yeah. So we get grants from foundations that want to support high quality education. And so we kind of work alongside the schools that they're also funding, because like when a school opens up, like they want to let the community know that they exist and what's special about them. And so we help with that.
Very, very good. Well, you guys need to go check out SA Charter Moms if you haven't already. If you guys are from SA Charter Moms, make sure and follow us here at Once in a Wild. We're gonna be friends for a while, I'm sure. Oh, there goes Sunny. He's like, bye. He's done. No. So Sunny is trained to fly from hand to hand, so he thinks that I keep asking him to do that, but I didn't ask you to do that. Oh, got it. But you guys go and follow them if you haven't already. This video will be I can't talk. I'm done. This video will be uploaded to your YouTube as well. So we're going to give her the copy. I know it's not there yet. This video will be remaining on our YouTube as well if you want to watch it again, and make sure you subscribe to our YouTube, subscribe to their YouTube as well, and check them out. What is the best way to get involved? Like kind of in a nutshell, people just want to, is it the website? Should they go to the website first?
Like if you're on Facebook, the Facebook discussion group. So San Antonio Charter Moms discussion group on Facebook is like super active. And that's where like we post like when we have events coming up. That's a great way to find out. And And then we do have an email newsletter too. It went a little dormant over the summer, but we'll bring that back. And that's also a good way to like don't miss the events.
Got you. Well, excellent. I know there was a lot of information tonight for both of our sets of viewers. So I appreciate you guys' patience, and thank you so much for being here. If you want to support what we do, you know the drill. Venmo, Cash App, PayPal, Amazon wishlist, or book your own animal encounter, whether it be virtual or in person. We would love to see some of you moms and teachers booking your classroom or just for fun, field trip style, or really anything at all events with our animals. We do have a website, onceinawild.com, but if you want the full animal list, contact me at my number, which is listed down below right next to the website there, and we'd love to hear from you very soon. Is there anything else you would like to say? We've gone on and on. I knew we would.
No, I think these animals are great. And
thank you.
It's a great learning opportunity. So I encourage, all the charter moms, like, look up Once in a Wild and see if they can come to your event or come to your school. Like if you're a PTA mom and you have an idea for a school event, this is a great way to suggest it to your school leaders.
Awesome. Thank you so much for saying that. I really appreciate it. Okay, we're going to go ahead and close with our theme song as always, and Inga gets to see it for the first time. So we hope to see you guys next week. What is your time again for your live stream?
Ours are usually at 4 p.m. and the days vary. So, but if you follow our page or join our group, you'll get advance notice.
Got you. Very good. We'll just follow them and you'll get all the information there. Very good. And we're always Once in a Wild Wednesday, of course, Wednesdays at 6:30 p.m. Central Time. And we'll see you guys next time. We are not too close to ordinary, but we love to be your friend. Hold our hands and let's have fun together, singing as loud as you can. Everybody singing Once in a Wild. Together. Alrighty, we'll see you guys next time. Have a wonderful rest of your evening. Bye.
Bye.